evening. Welcome to the Selectmen's Meeting for the 11th of September. I would like to call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Wayne Miller, present.
Sulicio's present. Cindy King is not. Could you all join me in a pledge of allegiance, please? Today being 9/11, we all know what that is. I thought it might be nice for us to just have a moment of silence to reflect on the people who lost their lives and the loss of innocence in our country. Thank you. I'd like to announce that this meeting is being tape recorded. Anyone in the audience recording as well? No? Chairman's additions or deletions, do we have any?
I don't think we do.
The only thing I wanted to go over is who are we interviewing and which days?
Do you have that with you, Karen? Town council interviews?
For town council interviews coming up. I just wanted to be able to announce that after.
I'll print out the agendas because we need that, and we might have the names.
Thank you. I'm not going to do it now, but I'm going to add that in. Where do we add that? How about under
Work session.
Selectmen?
Selectmen. 6.2.
Yes, please. So 6.2.2, how's that? Executive session, we have 3.
We're doing the public comment after?
Oh yes, public comment, I'm sorry. Anyone? Lori?
As, I don't know if this is the appropriate spot or not, but as chairman of the Townsend Housing Authority, 2 weeks ago at this meeting, I handed in a request for legal counsel review of the $10,000 that was given to RCAP by CDAC, and I've yet to hear a response. Do you know how long that should take?
Don't. I can find out tomorrow morning, though, when they're open. I can give you a call tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, or you could, can she just send them an email? Who did it go to?
Everything goes to Attorney Jenkins, and then he calls it to whatever the specialist is. So I can get to him tomorrow morning, first thing, Lori. I don't know if you're around, but I can reach you in the
It's been
morning.
2 weeks. I mean, it wasn't a rush, obviously. I didn't want to interfere with anything else that they might be doing, but I thought 2 weeks was adequate to get that answer. And then the other thing is, I know that we used to have a town properties committee that hasn't been appointed probably for 3 years, but I wondered if it's not being recognized, why does it have a mailbox that's half full? So just bring that to your attention.
It's a mailbox that's half full.
Yes.
People must think they're still there. Well, we could look into that. We have no properties committee right now, so.
Right, but there is a purpose for it, and it revolves around land use. So perhaps now that we have a land use coordinator, that could come back on board, because planning would ask information from the properties committee. Properties committee used to make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen in reference to either housing, like when we had the Habitat house that was built, you know, they brought forward the land that could be used So it does serve a purpose, and
I think we talked about it once before.
It's been being announced, and I believe it's actually on the list. I stand to be corrected, but I believe it's on the list on the website for committees that are seeking volunteers.
And when is our volunteer thing? November?
13th.
November 13th, we're having a volunteer fair where everybody that's looking for volunteers or that takes volunteers can advertise, if you will, or grab people as they come through the door. I hope it's going to be a peaceful kind of competition, but that might be a place where we could supply some information about the Properties Committee. I think part of the problem is that people don't understand. I, for one, don't understand an awful lot about it, so. Okay, we'll add that to the list. Thank you, Lori. Okay, 2.1, executive session. Pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position or litigating position, and the chair so declares, which she does, for AFSCME Supervisory Union Lieutenant and AFSCME Police Union grievance. Do we want to go through all three of them?
I think we get the first one out of the way.
Okay.
Sure.
So let's do a motion, please.
I move that we move out of regular session and move into executive session.
I think you have to read it as the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I move that we move into executive session pursuant to General Law C-30A, S-21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the bargaining position or litigating position on the chair so declares for AFSCME Supervisory Union Lieutenant and AFSCME Police Union grievance.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Get a roll call, please. We're going to come back into open session.
Wayne Miller, yes.
Sulicio, yes. So we will come back to open session after this first one. Business with that, we would ask you to please leave us for a while. Thank you, Hartley. Welcome back. We finished the first executive session. I'm going to make a recommendation that we pass over or postpone 2.2
1, 2, 3.
and 2.3.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to, okay. So, on to appointments of officials, personnel. 3.1, appoint Kim Craven to the Townsend Emergency Management Association for term effective September 11th, 2018 to June 30th, 2021.
Madam Chair, I move that we appoint Kim Craven to the Townsend Emergency Management Association, TEMA, for a term effective September 11th, 2018 to June 30th, 2021.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3.2, appoint Barbara A. Borden to the Townsend Emergency Management Association for a term effective September 11th, 2018 to June 30th, 2021.
I move the board appoint Barbara A. Borden to the Townsend Emergency Management Association for a term effective September 11th, 2018 to June 30th, 2021.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let me just catch up with my notes here. Three, appoint Sean Pearson to the Zoning Board of Appeals as an associate member for a term effective September 11th, 2018 to June 30th, 2019.
I move the board appoint Sean Pearson to the Zoning Board of Appeals as an associate member for a term effective September 11th, 2018 to June 30th, 2019.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3-4, appoint David Funioli to the Zoning Board of Appeals as an associate member for a term effective September 11th, 2018 to June 30th, 2019.
Move the board appoint Dave Funioli to the Zoning Board of Appeals as an associate member for a term effective September 11th, 2018 to June 30th, 2019.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Appoint David Hargraves to the Townsend Fire EMS Association as a per diem paramedic for a term effective September 11th, 2018 to June 30th, 2019, contingent upon the passing of a medical exam and a query check with a one-year probationary period.
Madam Chair, that should say Fire EMS Department, I'm sorry, I don't know why I had associations
Yeah, I
in my
know.
head.
I didn't even catch that. Thank you, Carolyn.
I move the board appoint David Hargraves to the Townsend Fire EMS Department as a per diem paramedic for a term effective September 11th, 2018 to June 30th, 2019, contingent upon the passing of a medical exam and a query check with a one-year probationary period.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3-6, appoint John Johnson as a reserve officer for the Townsend Police Department for a term effective September 11th, 2018 to June 30th, 2019.
I move the board appoint John Johnson as a reserve officer for the Townsend Police Department for a term effective September 11th, 2018 to June 30th, 2019.
Second. Discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4.1, review accept a grant in the amount of $7,800 through Sustainable Materials Recovery Program. Mr. Kreiber?
Very briefly, this comes in from the Commonwealth. It was applied for by the Board of Health. Comes in through the Department of Environmental Protection. So there's a document attached, the second of the two pages that are attached in your packets that details this is can be used for recycling purposes.
So the Board of Health administers this?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
But you, as the executives, must accept.
Do you accept, Wayne?
I move the board accept a grant in the amount of $7,800 through the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program.
Second. Any other discussion?
Does it need to state that it goes into their account, or how do we?
No, the accountant will handle that.
Okay.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4.2, review, discuss policy 42018, Corey policy, first reading. Jim, you want to summarize this?
I'd actually look to Carolyn. to
Carolyn,
summarize
could you
it, 'cause I know that she did
summarize
the
it,
work
because
on
I
this
know
one.
you worked on this with town council.
Yeah, when I became Corey certified, some of the laws had changed a few years ago, and I realized the town didn't have a Corey policy, which is part of the regulations of being able to do Corey checks. So I did have Attorney Jenkins look it over like you had asked, and he changed a few things. His email should be attached. I also updated the form to be in compliance with Mass General law as well, with the addition of having parental signatory for anyone that's underage for recreation.
And the underage part of it,
It shouldn't be referenced in the Corey check, in the Corey policy, I understand. It's a local decision. Anybody that actually works with children should still have one, so that's why the addition of the signatory from the parents. So it's not in the actual policy.
and what age is considered?
Any,
Under 18.
yeah, anybody under 18 that works with.
Okay, regardless of how
Yes.
much under 18.
Yeah, because I called.
So it could be somebody with just a work permit.
Exactly.
Okay.
They do it for soccer, too. I know that for the referees.
Okay. Thank you.
So that helped with that.
Thank you for doing that.
Okay.
Mhm.
What do we have to do?
Make a motion.
Accepting that first reading.
I make a motion that the board accept at the first reading the newly drafted Corey policy.
I'll second that. So we can have a second reading at the next regular meeting, please, okay? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4.3, this is an interesting form. Review, discuss, vote to authorize cemetery and park superintendent as the administrative and signatory agent for the purpose of the $7,100 state appropriation for the veterans marker. This was one of the things that we got from
Senator Tran.
Senator Tran. Want to make a motion?
Move the board vote to authorize the cemetery and parks superintendent as the administrative signatory agent for the purpose of the $7,100 state appropriation for the veterans marker.
Second. Someday, we can maybe sit down and help me understand these
Yeah,
forms.
this is the standard state contract, so.
I understand that,
All of
but
the ones
it's
you see,
horrid.
and it's ridiculous to try to
It's
understand.
absolutely
I read it
horrid.
3 times.
I
They're
know.
all the same, whether it's the energy grant or this. or-
It's terrible.
Chapter
I
9.
want to meet the person that did this. I really do. It's got to be a very interesting person. I use the term loosely.
Yeah, the only positive note, at least they're all consistent with
Well, that's
everything.
true. Consistency, I think, is good.
Because they used to be all different, that would really drive me crazy.
Okay, been moved and seconded. I do have one other question. So, tell me a little bit about the veterans marker. I mean, exactly what we're doing.
Actually, the reason it's being suggested that it run to the cemetery and park superintendent is because the cemetery and parks department is the one that put the
Request.
application request in to Senator Tran. So I couldn't even tell you what the project entails, other than what we heard from Senator Tran, that he in fact had gotten a budgetary earmark for it. So I spoke with Roger and said, you guys put this together. He said that one of his commissioners, Mr. Boucher, put it in, and that he and Mr. Boucher would work the issue together. So you can have them in and
Good.
make a report if you'd like.
Just a brief summary. That would be fine. Thank you. Did we vote no?
Nope, not yet.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4.4, review, approve, sign proclamation for Keith Jackson.
Do we have to read this? Yes.
Typically, do we read these?
I did last time for the
Yeah,
Eagle
yeah.
Scout.
Ken, if you'd like.
So I'll read the proclamation. Whereas Keith M. Jackson was elected state commissioner, or state commander, of the Department of Massachusetts Veterans and Foreign Wars of the U.S., and whereas Keith M. Jackson joined the VFW Post 6538, Townsend, Massachusetts in 2005, where he is a Gold Legacy member. After retiring from the U.S. Army, where he served as a combat engineer with service in Iraq, Kosovo, Bosnia, and Korea, earning him the Bronze Star, Meritorious Service Medal, 1st Oak Leaf Cluster, Army Commendation Medal, 4th Oak Leaf Cluster, Army Achievement Medal, 7th Oak Leaf Cluster, and numerous military campaign and unit awards. Whereas Keith M. Jackson has served in elected and appointed positions at post district and department levels, culminating with his election as commander of the Department of Massachusetts. Whereas Keith M. Jackson will be honored by the VFW Post 6538 at a testimonial dinner on September 15, 2018, and now therefore Sue Lizio, Cindy King, and Wayne Miller, Selectmen of the Town of Townsend, Middlesex County, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, United States of America, do wish to recognize and honor Keith M. Jackson for his accomplishments and service to his country, given this 11th day of September in the year 2018.
Very nice.
Is the official?
Do you want to do a motion?
I move that we sign the proclamation for Keith Jackson.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. figure it out.
Okay.
Okay. 4.5, review, approve a contract for engineering services with Tie and Bond in the amount of $26,600 for the water main replacement on Meadow Road.
I move the board approve a contract for engineering services with Tie and Bond in the amount of $26,600 for the water main replacement on Meadow Road.
Second, but I have a question. The agenda says 26.6. The memo I have says 27.5.
And the contract says 26.6.
Okay.
Which is it, Paul?
It's 26.6. I added wrong, I subtracted wrong, put it that way.
Okay, but it is,
What it was is we had a part for contingency for environmental permitting for the job, and we found out that because the project is basically the same size water main is going in, the same trench, that we're exempt from filing for an NOI. We just have to do basically erosion control, so it took the environmental permitting out of it, so that's why it's a lesser amount.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4.6, discussion regarding water flow and fire suppression sufficiency in harbor area of town. Jim?
Yes, Paul, actually, how'd we do on the testing of the new line? It should be right about now, right?
Retesting, unfortunately, I have to report that it came back with a positive, still a positive detection for bacteria. In consulting with the contractor, in the person doing the contractor doing the chlorinating and pressure testing, we're going to reassess, or the contractor's going to reassess how they flow the water into the main and introduce the chlorine. And once it's introduced, we're going to let it set, or they're going to let it set for a longer period of time. So unfortunately, everything goes right, we have back in service with a full loop early next week.
So how long did you have to wait for the test that you got the results on today?
Once the
Well,
test...
they chlorinated a couple days ago, right?
End of
Right,
last
but
week.
it has to sit proper contact time, at least 48 hours. Try to let it go a little longer for a better result, hopefully. But once the samples are submitted to the lab, it has to be at least 24 hours before anything's noticed for presence absence.
Okay, so what is this causing at the school?
Part of the reason this came to my attention, the fire chief, as you know, Madam Chair, wrote an email to you and I last week. I called Paul directly after I got it. Back in June, Paul had reported out to the fire chief that the project was going to involve decommissioning or closing off the current loop that exists down there onto Proctor Road, which gives sufficient flow. And I guess you had said that was done.
Supplies the, greatly aids the flow and pressure down in that area.
In the area or in the school? For the school?
In the area, the school and the mall, because of the undersized main on Main Street.
So the issue was, back in June, it was the chief's understanding from Paul that it was the school that was the issue. The school was vacant in the summer months, so the chief didn't express any concern. When the school year started, he checked back in with Paul. According to the chief, it was then that he was informed that it wasn't just the school, it was the school and the mall that was being impacted and had reduced flows. I don't believe, and I would look to Paul to say to the contrary, but I don't believe it's at the point where fire suppression couldn't occur and water wouldn't flow. So the sprinkler systems in the harbor would still activate.
Correct.
They may not activate to their full design potential, but the chief did speak with the fire marshal and asked his recommendation on the matter, and the recommendation was get the loop back in as quickly as possible, but that there still should be sufficient fire suppression, just not up to full design capacity. So anybody that's working a shift in the fire department is aware of the situation, was as of last week when the chief found out, and they're on standby and on notice if there's to be an incident or an event down in the harbor or at the school, that there could be pressure issues, to make certain that we come running with the water as quickly as possible.
Okay, so when it's all fixed, we're gonna have this loop. And the loop is going to help the water pressure in the main?
Yes, it'll greatly add to the pressure and flow for fire protection to the mall area and the high school, as well as the few residents right there.
And that's how it was. I mean, the loop was there before having to cut it to
Right.
do this project. So how many years ago
The
were
main
we required?
reason, the main reason was when we did back in the mid-70s, when the our original master plan was done, they recognized that main was undersized from the Harbor Lights up. And the recommendation was either replace it or bring a loop down Wallace Hill to Proctor Road to connect on. And so that was done back in '77 when we installed the Highland Street tank. 12-inch main was brought down Wallace Hill and down Proctor, as well as there was a big project that went, a 16-inch main also went down Highland Street to supply when the middle school was built. So the water department spent some
So it's
significant
coming
amount
down Proctor toward the high school?
toward the school.
And how far down beyond the school does it go?
You know, Harbor Lane goes to Pepperell.
Yes?
We're interconnected with Pepperell right there in case of
Okay.
emergencies.
And then it just loops around?
Yep, then it comes down the driveway to the school off Proctor.
So
Loops around the
you
school.
don't have to worry about the replacing those old mains at all?
Eventually, yeah, I'd like to replace them because part of that section is 6-inch, which is really not recommended as for design of a water system by DEP. It should be 8 inches or above. The sections, originally the end of the line was, back in the 1930s, was, I think, the hydrant across from the Harbor Fire Station or the intersection. Not quite sure. But that was the end of the line. For whatever reason, before my time, to go up to the school, it was like a combination of 6 and 8-inch water main. Some of it's unlined cast iron, which does tuberculate because there's no lining in it. However, when there was a tap done for the new connection for the school, it did result, we observed the coupon, they call it, a section of main that comes out when they tap it, had very little tuberculation on it. It was like a few nodules, but mostly it's the coating, not like you see in some other pictures where there's literally inches of tuberculation on the pipe.
So that would be like plaque in your arteries or something, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Well, what happens is it causes when it's
Well, I'm just trying to picture it.
good analogy, but what happens when there's stressed on the line, if it's undersized, does create at times discoloration to the water. Although not a health concern, it is aesthetically not really pleasing to look at.
So does the water department have plans to remediate that at all?
Well, I tried to, which I'd like to give you some correspondence to, mostly email correspondence, just to allow the board to understand that I made this a point and brought it to the engineering firm of SMMA, the general contractor CTA, as well as various towards the
Yeah, I
town.
remember you talking about it, Paul, but that wasn't what I meant. What I meant was, regardless of the fact that the school building is there, okay? I mean, that's a school project, and they did everything they needed to do, and they actually just had a new change order to increase, to do some different work with the water pipes on the project, okay? What I meant was the main road,
On the main, yes.
that you're responsible for, that water main. Does your department have plans to replace that?
Yes, it's not, right now it's not, we have some other projects we're looking at, but because the loop is there from Proctor Road, giving, once that's connected, giving an excess of 2,000 gallons a minute for fire protection, which is more than some city blocks need for fire protection, is more than adequate. So if it was still fed on its own, yeah, we'd make that a priority.
Okay.
But I just want to bring to the board's attention my concern, and it's kind of troubling, given what the water department has had to go through for the last couple of years. It's come to my knowledge, and it's been put to me that the fire chief is asserting that we put the town in a position of liable, that the water department has put the town in a position of liability, and this is done by the water department, which is not the
Point of
case.
order.
Yeah, that's really not something that we should be talking about.
That becomes a personnel matter, what you're venturing into there. So if you do have that concern, you can submit it to writing, have the commissioners, if they feel so inclined, submit it to the board in writing, but it's not something for open session when you're
Okay,
actually
well,
referencing
I will get
performance
away
of the
from
employee.
that personal matter, but I just like, in those correspondence, it goes back to 2014, correspondences with a mandatory referral that the fire department was CC'd on, with my recommendations that main be upgraded, and that it does supply the mall area.
But Paul, I'm on the building committee too, and I remember when you were hoping that the school project could incorporate the changes to that water main. And it was talked about because you brought it up, and it was not part of the scope of our project to change the water main on the main street.
Right.
Okay? So it's not, that's like the past. All I was asking was, what are you planning to do going forward? That's all. So, and you explained that, so I'm fine.
Okay, well, I just want to make it a point that it's being, I'm not mentioning any names, but it's being put out there that this is a water department responsibility, and it's a project separate from a water department project, that we're just trying to work with the contractor and work with to get this job done in an expedient. All I did was keep the fire department informed of when the possibility of fire protection flow would be restricted.
Okay, I think we're done on that. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
4.7, discussion of pending legal opinion requested by the chair. I put this on because I wanted folks to know what I had asked for. This was a follow-up to having received the legal opinions from a long time ago that were supposed to be an answer to, like, who does appointments and who appoints what. When I read it, it simply was not, it was not definitive enough. And maybe because the purpose that they were written for wasn't as as specific as what I was hoping for. And because Wayne and I can't talk other than in a meeting, I said, I'm going to put this on the agenda so we can talk about it. But I just wondered what your thoughts on the
Well-
one that we got were, and does this,
I still have some of the questions as that as well, because after leaving the last meeting, I thought it was rather vague as far as who does what, or who has the authority to do what, and what are the ramifications of a disagreement, if you will. So I am fine with those questions. I'd like an answer for them as well. Hopefully they'll be a little more specific and not as vague.
well, that's why I tried to
I like the way
be
they're worded,
as
because it's,
specific as possible.
yes.
Okay? Just so that we don't keep going back and forth. I think everybody wants to know.
Yeah.
So that was the only reason I added it here, was to allow us to talk about it. Okay?
Yeah, and I'm fine with those questions, and I'd love to hear the answers.
Thank you. I expect it this week. Okay, 5.1, authorize the town administrator to sign the community development block grant contract and to solicit and contract for grant administration services.
Madam Chair, we had MRPC file the application for us. One of the conditions that comes back from
The form.
the Commonwealth, from the Commonwealth is that we cannot use MRPC to administer the
Oh,
grant.
is that what they said?
So we had thought that was going to be the case. It actually is referenced in the conditions for the grant. So I would need to go back out looking for someone else to administer the grant. So I've been working with DHCD. They do have a list of other organizations that do this type of work. So just with your approval this evening, as it's written on the agenda, to authorize me to execute the necessary documents and secure somebody's service to do it.
Okay. And that comes out of those funds?
It does. Yep, there's an admin component built into this, built
Okay.
into the project.
Okay, a motion?
I move the board authorize the town administrator to sign the community development block grant contract and to solicit and contract for grant administrative services.
Second?
Question?
I'll allow a question.
This particular block grant, what is it for?
The lion's share of it is housing rehab,
Okay.
$600,000 for housing
Okay.
rehab.
So, because I'm familiar with some of it, I'd like to ask, why can't we do that in-house? Why can't the town administer that? I mean, I just went through this with one of the houses that had this before, and so the town got back, my understanding is, because I asked them, MRPC, the town got back over $16,000 that can be used, again, for another rehab project, so.
And we still would. In that case that you're referring to, MRPC has generally been the town's agent on those matters. So on that particular case, MRPC had been the administrative arm of the town administering the grant.
Yeah.
If somebody gets their housing rehab project done, the house gets liened for that amount of money, that amount declines over a period of 15
Right.
years. If they sell, we recoup the money. MRPC doesn't get it, the town
Right.
gets it. So even if we go to another firm to do this, we still get that money. We still get that recoup money.
Lori, I think the state requires us to have somebody administer the grant.
Some communities, larger communities, do have somebody on staff that can do this, like in the city of Gardner or the city of Fitchburg, they do have housing rehab.
Lancaster does too.
They do have
because
housing
were
rehab.
involved.
Actually, no, Lancaster uses MRPC, or used to use MRPC. They
Yeah,
can't this
they
year
don't,
either.
Right.
So towns, generally the size of towns, are Lancaster, Shirley, Air. Well, Air is different because they do have the Economic Development Department over there because of Devon's. So they have their own administrator. But communities our size, generally, they shop
It's
it
kind of
out.
like the same thing as having,
So
a
just so
council on board, a city council
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
something,
yeah. So just so that the public knows, that our residents know, do they apply for this through your office, or do they apply for it through the Board of Health?
No, it would be whoever's going to be administering the grant would be the contact point. So there would be something on the town's website that lists who the contact company is that's going to be doing the administration of the grant. They would contact them. But people that are watching at home should know that there already is an extensive waiting list of pre-qualified, pre-evaluated homeowners in town. So that doesn't mean that if you have a critical situation today and you're not on a list that you can't jump to the top, because
Right.
it's based on habitability, health and habitability issues. So for instance, if the top of the list is windows for a home, but you
Yeah.
have no heat and you have 3 kids, you'll potentially jump to the top. So once we have contract with somebody, that contact information would go up. In the interim, if somebody wants to just send an email off to our office, we'd be happy to keep that file so when the new contractor comes on, we can get them in the queue.
Well, when you just said, just so that the residents all know that there's already an extensive waiting list, if we don't have an administrator, how did we get the waiting list? I
Excellent.
want them to know that.
Yep.
Was it Board of Health? Was it your office?
No, it was MRPC.
MRPC
as-
has a list?
As, they were the,
We
MRPC
got a
was...
list before, Lori. Okay, so let's say we had enough money to do 5 houses. There was a list of 15 people. Okay,
Oh,
so
the
we have
existing
left, it's like a waiting list.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, it's a waiting list. It's similar to what you know, what the housing deals with.
Right.
Okay, so it's just cumulative, it just keeps going. Am I correct?
Yeah, and it was
Okay.
MRPC.
So I asked just that it, so
Yeah.
it would be out there for our residents.
Yeah, I mean, it's
to know.
just like if you apply for public housing, you know, or income eligible housing, there's usually a waiting list. There's a waiting list for this too.
Okay.
To the point of internal staff, Lori, some communities take the admin money that comes in this grant and they hire somebody to be an actual employee in-house. You then have the benefit load, and then you have, you know, any other issue that comes with having an actual employee versus a contractor outside that you have to weigh the pros and cons of. The other thing that's difficult in trying to do that is you'd be trying to hire somebody with no guarantee that they have a job next year because we may not get the grant next
Right.
year. So
I got
it's,
it.
at our size, this is the way that it's generally done.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
we get a vote on it?
Aye.
And I would say aye as well. Work session. Town administrator updates and reports. Thank you so much for putting that in writing, Jim. It
Oh, certainly.
helps.
Yep. Personnel updates, 1A, Police Sergeant John Johnson, retired. As per a prior discussion.
Kinda.
I know. Well, in his official
I
capacity,
almost
he's
said
retired.
something.
But you had as a tickler for an agenda coming up in September to put this back before you to select a date to invite the sergeant and his family and co-workers to come before the board for an appropriate time of recognition of his years of service. So I just wanted to get it back in front of you. The action requested is what's your pleasure? Do you want to pick a date at some point out? I know you've got council interviews for the next couple in September, so maybe the first meeting in October. And make the invitation.
Let's try for the first meeting in October.
Excellent.
Does that sound all right to you?
That's fair enough for me.
Thank you. Letter B, compensatory time. I've been asked by the chair to report out on the matter of compensatory time and how it's defined and applied regarding employees of the town. There are a number of categories of employees in town service: unionized employees, personal contract employees, and personnel policy employees. Starting with union employees. Each unionized group, police, fire, supervisors, highway, water, and soon-to-be administrative, if comp time is allowed, would have the issue detailed in their respective contracts. Police, and I'm not going to read each of the blocks, but I've excerpted the relevant portion from the union contract for police, fire, supervisors, highway, water, and we don't yet have the contract negotiated for the administrative group, so we don't have anything to reference there. Personal services contract. Each position covered by a personal services contract, town administrator, police chief, fire chief, town accountant, and treasurer collector, has a section of language defining work hours. As exempt employees under the Fair Labor Standards Act, these people do not get overtime, hence do not get comp time. So just as a sense, I mean, the use of the word comp time is meant to be in accordance with the Fair Labor Standards Act. If you work more than the number of hours that would trigger overtime to be paid, you can negotiate with your employer to, instead of get overtime pay, get compensatory time off. So you can accrue time and a half hours on the books as compensatory time. So you don't take the cash, but you have the time on the books.
So if somebody wanted to save for a trip to Europe,
Right.
And they
Build up some
needed-
time. Yep.
they needed it, okay.
If they're gonna get their knee replaced or something like that.
That's not gonna happen.
So, because these positions are FLSA exempt positions and are not eligible for overtime, there would be no comp time. There's a misconception sometimes that comp time is the same as flex time. Some people use those terms interchangeably. Flex time is more of a management employee, an exempt employee thing, where during town meeting time, the town accountant or the treasurer collector may be here 75, 80 hours on a week because it's crazy the week leading up to town meeting. They can then flex their schedule at some time when things calm down without having to bang their vacation or personal time. So being an exempt employee, you're allowed to flex your time so long as you're doing the work, which is why the language in each of the contracts for personal services employees in the town says, agrees to devote that amount of time that is reasonably necessary to faithfully perform the duties of the position. It is recognized that the position must devote a great deal of time outside of normal office hours to the business of the town, and to that end, the hours of work shall not be specified. So again, the standard language of these types of contracts.
Typical salary position.
Right. And then personnel policy employees. There's language within the personnel policies that addresses non-exempt, so again, these are hourly employees, and overtime. Such employees only receive overtime when they have worked in excess of 40 hours per week. And again, that's the Fair Labor Standards Act trigger. The document is silent on the issue of compensatory time. The practice, however, has been to allow hourly workers who have been asked or compelled to work beyond the number of hours for which they are regularly scheduled to accrue compensatory time on an hour-for-hour basis if such hours are less than 40 per week. So unlike compensatory time proper, where you've got a 40-hour trigger and you're required to pay that person at time and a half, you can negotiate to give them comp time for time and a half. Somebody that's under the 40 hours wouldn't be entitled to overtime, but
So do
you
we
can-
have like 37-hour people?
We have 37-hour, we have 32-hour, we have 20-hour, we have
Okay, and
11.
those don't count.
They
It
wouldn't
needs
get
to
over,
be
they
a-
wouldn't get overtime.
Right.
But if, for instance, if the, I'm trying to think of a good example. If-
Use you.
If,
Well, 35 hours, so that would be 5 7-hour days. So when you have meetings, you know,
right, if I require Carolyn to be here, because we have a project going on and we just have to get it done for a deadline, I can say, you could bank that 3 hours of comp time.
Oh,
And then with my prior approval, some other times you can take the comp time off. So there's that management control of being able to have to pre-approve when it's going to be used. And the standard is going to be used within the year it's earned, so you're not going to,
So if it's okay with the
hours.
employee to take it as comp time, then it's good for both, really.
Right, it
Because
gives you
you're not going
flexibility.
into overtime
Right.
pay, too.
The other thing that's difficult about it is, and I won't use Carolyn as an example, but somebody who's working 20 hours, at the end of their 20-hour day, they could technically say, nice knowing you, I'm out, I have plans. You want to provide an opportunity for people to feel like they can stay and put in the additional time on occasion when you need them to, by giving them the flexibility to bank some time. So it's really kind of a management tool to be able to inspire
So-
them to stay.
So this week, they work 25 instead of 20, and they take that extra 5 hours and
Bleed it off someplace else, yeah.
and
So,
the next week, they only work
Right,
15.
next Friday, I want to leave early to go to the Cape.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
excellent.
That's good to understand better.
And interim treasurer collector services. Per the discussion at your last meeting, I've reached out to firms that provide interim treasurer collector services to assist as we move forward in our efforts to permanently fill the position. I received one proposal and have it enclosed. Under board action requested, vote to approve the submitted proposal. For procurement purposes, I've satisfied the procurement law by having made solicitation to at least 3, received 1 back in writing. The proposal, as you see, they can commit at this point to 2 days per week, 8 hours a day. So It's not going to fill the need that we have for a full-time person in the job, but it's going to give us markedly more than we have right now with the existing people in the office trying to carry that load. We had a department head meeting earlier today, and we talked about the issue again because another community, the town of Barry, which is a pretty small community, and it's even more rural than we are. They're currently in the marketplace, and they're paying in excess of $10,000 more starting for the position of treasurer collector than we are. So this, again, I think buttresses the argument that we're making at the last meeting that we're not competitive in the marketplace. Toward that end, and in conformance with what we talked about at the last meeting, I've started the process of putting the data together. Took the fiscal year 16 or November 15 HRS spreadsheet that has all the comparable communities that they identified, that the consultant identified by position, and I've populated the column that has our most updated fiscal 19 salary grid, and there'll be a share file going out, a Dropbox file going out to all those communities. We can't compel them to give us the data. We can just say that we'd love you to fill in your data, and we'll promise to give you a copy of the entire packet when it's full, so they can use it too. So no guarantee on how quickly that'll get turned around
How
by
many
folks out there.
towns?
Goodness, 10 at least. I'm trying to see it in my mind's eye right now. I think 10 at least.
Are they all in our area?
The majority of them are. And again, I'm trying to not even look at that.
I understand.
Because
I guess
we
I'm
paid
just,
somebody that does this without a bias to
Yeah.
come in and say, these are the comparable communities. If I were to pick them, somebody would find an argument that this one isn't comparable for this given position.
yeah, I wasn't thinking about the comparable part. I was thinking more about who are we in competition with?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and I know that.
Because there's a difference.
Sure. When you read the market analysis component of the HRS study, even the abbreviated 15 update, they do talk about that and how they can justify it based on all of the underlying data that they rely upon, equalized property valuation to show the ability to pay of a community.
And the area too, because the reality is that, we might not be able to, in terms of competition,
We shouldn't be trailing Barry. Well, we might not want to be able to be competitive with Grafton, which is one we talked about at the last meeting. That's definitely a different demographic. Barry jumped up out of nowhere and really surprised me. It's in the MMA this week.
interesting.
And we have one candidate who is currently
Where are we
working in a neighboring
advertising?
community.
Where are we advertising?
Treasurer Collectors Association, MMA, Accountants Association, and there are a
Are
couple of
those
other lists.
municipal
Yeah.
accountant associations?
Yeah. And we're getting resumes. It's not as though we're not getting interest, but we're getting interest from people that don't have the jobs. They'd like the job. They'd like to be working closer to home, perhaps. They have some finance experience, but we'd be better limping along with outside help for 2 days a week than bringing somebody in that doesn't have the
Is there a
tools.
possibility of getting more than 2 days a week?
Right now, the workload that they've got with other communities allows just the 2, but it's scheduled to be revisited in 4 weeks. It'll at least maintain 2, but there could be an upside.
Okay. Questions, Wayne?
Nope. Just think you're doing all the right things.
Limp along. Yeah, I'll be interested to see that
So you need a-
survey.
You need a vote?
Yeah.
I move the board approve the submitted proposal for the interim treasurer collector service.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And for the record, that is Strategic Municipal Solutions. Okay, next is the next page, D, education approval. Per the terms of the contract between the town and me, it's specifically provided that I'm entitled to quote, tuition for one college-level course per semester at a college of the town administrator's choice, subject to prior approval of the town. And you, in the contract, are the town. In my tenure to date, which would equate to 9 semesters, I've not sought to avail myself to this benefit. Having served as a strong town manager for 15 years prior to coming to Townsend, I was responsible to exercise significant authority The same is not the case here in the town administrator position in Townsend. In this position, I'm responsible to deliver significant work product, a great deal of which must be achieved in collaboration with segments of the local government over which I have no direct authority. In this regard, I've come to recognize a need for some professional development on this very issue. Toward that end, as per our contract this evening, I respectfully request your approval for attendance at a course at the Columbia University Business School Executive Education Program entitled Persuasion, Influencing Without Authority. This is an accelerated college-level course being held over an intensive 3-day period and will generate 3 credits. The course executive summary and sample agenda are enclosed. So under action requested per the contract between us, I request the board approve the course.
Sounds like a neat course. I want to go.
I've taken it.
Have you?
Yep.
Do you like it?
It was awesome.
Good.
Use it every day.
Good. Good to know. Do you know when you're going?
There are two available times. One is a September time coming up within the next 3 weeks, another is December. I have a commitment to go with my daughters and my wife for marching band to Disney in December. I don't know the dates yet. So the only potential conflict in doing the December date would be if I'm already going to be in Florida. So it'll have to be the September or the December, with the priority being December.
I don't have any issue. I don't have any issue with it.
No, I don't either. Sounds like a good course.
So I move the board approve per Jim's contract the,
Oh, what's the cost?
I'm trying to use persuasion without authority to negotiate that cost right now.
That's good. I'm glad.
As a Columbia alum, I've gotten to the point where I'm at about a 35% discount on the rate. So it's, I think per credit, it was originally around $1,600 per credit. So I'm coming in shy of that now, but I don't have it yet in writing from them.
Okay, just wondered. Motion?
I move that we approve the request to attend and take the course.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Question? Does that include expenses? I.e. travel, or would you be staying
Lodging.
over, or
Yeah.
how does that work?
The terms of the contract would provide for lodging and expenses as well. I
And
wouldn't
are they
be,
within a
Less than
certain amount?
$100 a night.
I'm sorry?
Is it within a certain amount? I mean, do you have a cap on that expense, or how, is it
I'm
just
gonna-
blatantly?
It should be like the lieutenant.
I mean,
No,
I'm
Lori,
asking the contract.
Lori, we have policies for that, right?
We do. Usual and customary for the area. I do actually have a college friend that lives in the city, and I'm going to try to see if I can arrange to stay there at no expense. If I can't, the next best thing I can find is something called pods. If you're not familiar with pods, it's a new concept. They basically take what was once a hotel room and make 4 out of it, and you barely have room to stand when you walk in the door before you hit the bed. It's meant to be a place to sleep.
So it's like a hostel.
No, a hostel has room. It literally
Japanese
is.
concept.
It is
Really?
a pod. The room is like the size of this table and a half, maybe. So the most economical in New York City would be a pod like that. So I'm looking into those if I can't land with a friend.
Oh, you traveled to New York?
Yeah, it's in New York.
This course is at Columbia in New York. Okay. Next.
Next is E, School Resource Officer. Chief of Police Bailey had asked that I update the board regarding his assignment of Officer Mark Francis to serve as the School Resource Officer. SRO Francis has been in the schools and is settling in nicely. And I know that, Madam Chair, you'd asked
Yep.
that I make sure that that was on the report.
Yeah, people were asking if we had one down there.
We get to financial updates, boiler replacement at Varnum Brook and Hawthorne Brook. discussion regarding performing these tasks within the funding of the accelerated repair project. And see enclosed, there's some email documentation between the superintendent and myself and the SBA, the School Building Authority. They have received approval from the School Building Authority to do these additional tasks, both at Varnum Brook and Hawthorne Brook, to replace the boilers with funds that are available within existing accelerated building repair projects. It wasn't originally scoped specifically to include this, but it did have a broad enough scope that the SBA felt that it was appropriate to be able to do this. So I know that the school district did reach out to council, and they got the go-ahead from their council as well. So it does not require anything of the towns in terms of a town meeting revote, but as a matter of protocol, thought it
Courtesy,
important
yeah.
to bring it before the board for your information, and then, if it's your pleasure, a vote to authorize.
And the superintendent last night was telling me too that actually both boilers at Hawthorne Brook are kaput. But one of them, they've gotten an energy green grant for a green boiler. So that's good news too. And they're hoping that they're going to have enough money to be able to pay for the other one. But just in case people are asking why are they going forward with that, it's because they got the go-ahead to do it.
So under board request, action requested, if the request meets the board's approval, a vote to approve and notify the school district.
I don't think we need to approve. I think we just need to send a note back, a letter back to just say, thank you for letting us know about the project, and hope you end up with enough money to do it, you know?
Next, you have, under financial updates B, letter to Governor Baker. In your packets, you should see the draft of the letter to Governor Baker. You'd asked me to get this to you for this meeting, and this is at the recommendation of Senator Tran at the last meeting. You took a vote to have as your priority the $80,000 authorization contained within the recently approved and signed environmental bond bill for the replacement of the sidewalks at the historic town common. So this letter does just that. Starts with the obligatory thank you, you've been really good to us, then gets to the meat of the request and how critical it is to us for historic, for pedestrian safety, and for the longest standing community band concert in the nation, to be able to continue for the greater Townsend region. So if it meets your approval, just a vote to take draft off and have the board execute it. We can get it ready for you for tomorrow when you pop in.
Okay, I think it'll be fine.
The only thing I'd add is copy to Senator Tran and Rep. Harrington, please.
Yep.
Okay.
So I move the board approve the draft letter to Governor Baker and sign out of session.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And next, C, Assessor's Office Veterans Exemption. It was brought to my attention last week by our Principal Assessor, Ms. Vicki Tidman, that 2 residents had filed timely and complete applications for veterans exemptions that they were entitled to receive. In spite of having so filed, the Assessor's Office did not process the applications, and the veterans never received the exemption. This was due to no fault of the veterans. It was entirely our fault. The legally allowed for window within which this matter could have been corrected had long since passed by the time the issue was discovered, leaving no lawful way to make these 2 local veterans whole in a timely fashion. Timeliness was important as these veterans relied upon the exemptions. In an effort at addressing the immediate needs of these 2 veterans as expeditiously as possible, a meeting of the Worthy Fund Committee was held, and there was a positive vote to pay the 2 veterans the amount that they should have received as exemptions. The expectation is that we will seek to place an article at an upcoming town meeting to refund the Worthy Fund. So basically, this was an available crutch, for lack of a better descriptor, to get them whole between now and when we have a town meeting.
That's fine. Thank you.
And under action requested, there is none requested. I did speak with Vicki today, and she did express again that there's a great number of these applications that come through, and this isn't common to have missed something like this, and as human beings and not as machines, sometimes this happens. She was just really glad that we were able to take care of it this way. Under project updates, the Townsend Fire West Station. The project is in the final stages. Site work is underway, and final furnishings are due to arrive within the next week or two. You may notice the painstaking work that's being done on the granite retaining wall on the corner. I'm amazed that people can take stones that are weird shapes and make them come together uniformly like that. It really is it's an art.
Yep.
That's work that wasn't scoped out on the project. That's work that's being donated to the project by who shall remain nameless, Mr. Shepherd. But we should be having a ribbon cutting anytime, probably within the next month or 6 weeks, which would be good to have that finally up and operable. Then we get into miscellaneous updates. Draft policy making the town website the official posting location for town notices requiring legal posting. See enclosed. You probably shuffled madly looking for enclosed and didn't find it
Yeah, I
because it's
didn't.
not there. I've taken 2 different versions that exist from 2 different other communities, combined them. It's not ready for prime time yet. I still have some work to do in both communities. The select board had direct authority over the town clerk's office, who is generally the office that's responsible to do postings. That's not the case here, so there's an additional step that needs to be worked. It just can't be done by fiat, so,
Well, I'm confident you'll figure it out.
yeah, we'll get it done for
Thank
the
you.
next meeting. And then, update regarding question about posting lawsuit documents on the town website. You had asked that I
Yeah.
give an update on this at this meeting as well, so enclosed in your packet is a document from town council giving an opinion on the matter, and I would just be looking for your guidance on what your wish is in that matter.
Should we read through that?
Yeah, I don't have a big issue with listing what's out there. I wouldn't go into great detail, but I'm also fine with leaving it the way it is. And
I'm a little concerned that, I mean, the very first thing, fine, okay? Something's been filed, and we got notice. Fine, put it out there, just let people know what it's about. But beyond that, when we start with the back and forth of filings, those become like, part of us defending ourselves in a lawsuit.
And council does say that in his opinion. He says at some point, it does become work product.
But I don't want to be responsible for that point. So I'm okay with the initial, but after that, as motions change and as things change, it's out there, in the courts.
that's true. Yeah, I mean, that's, if you want to dig deeper.
I just don't
Okay.
want us to be responsible, because what if somebody put up something that they shouldn't have put up,
Right. The one additional concern that council had on that, because we did talk about the initial filing, because that's what Mr. Page initially stated in his first comment, was once you've been served, that's a public document, instead of having people have to search, through a Pacer account or at the courthouse, just put it up. The one concern that council did express to me is, you're then, in effect, putting kind of one side of the argument out
Right.
without, with just a kind of,
Without the
an echo chamber
response.
with nothing else on the other side.
Right, without the
So,
response.
you could end up with a situation where you then end up spending more time trying to explain that that's just one side of the issue. That's just the complaint and not the response. So at what point do you reach the saturation of having put enough out that you've been
I don't want to
adequately
be in the
informing?
business of taking documents that are court documents and determining which ones are in defense of something that are really more part of the defense strategy, if you will. I don't think that our town employees, whoever's doing that posting, should have the responsibility of discerning that. And I don't think we should be talking to our attorney every time we have to have a response. So it's out in the courts. If people want to solicit the court for a public document, it's a records request to the courts. And if it's a public document, the courts know what they can release and what they can't. Not going to be in the business of doing that. We don't have the resources to do that.
But the initial, you're gonna,
I don't have a problem with the initial one.
right, because that at least, otherwise people don't know what to look for.
But keep
from the
in
courts.
mind that what the attorney said was, that's just the first,
Right, and I
part of
think
the
most
conversation.
anybody with a brain knows that that's just what somebody filed against the town.
okay, so, but we're not going to start engaging in conversations about, well, what does that mean, and what our defense
Sure.
is, or anything like that, okay? So I have no problem with the initial one.
No, I'm the same feeling. I don't want to get into a discussion about it at all. I just, here's the information.
I mean, it's litigation, we
it's
can't
litigation, we
talk
can't
about it.
comment on
Okay?
So if the, just so on a staff level, we're clear, if the town gets served, so not, there's something in the press, so that if the town gets served a document by the deputy sheriff, which makes it real and legitimate, at that point, we can put that document up.
That's it, yes. Okay? Do you want to vote?
Now, there's a video.
Okay.
I'd just like to see a draft of what we're proposing before it actually gets posted.
Do you-
Well,
Do you want
we typically do anyway.
Yeah, well, let's make sure we're saying the same thing.
That's what I'm,
What I'm understanding is the actual document that we get served, which has all of the allegations contained within it, without any modification, gets posted online
as a PDF.
as PDF.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's fine.
okay.
I don't want it to look like we did something or made a link to something else or added or subtracted something to that. So
Oh, no.
if we're just going as a
Just
PDF, scan a
a
PDF.
PDF and
Okay.
that's it.
Yeah,
That's fine.
and again, we get served by the deputy sheriff, it gets scanned, and it gets uploaded.
That's-
At that point, we're done.
Yep.
Can we at least see it first?
Oh, you do?
I mean, within like a week?
You could actually, if you wanted to take it that step further, you could have a
Can we
section.
do a little policy?
Well, you could have a section on your agenda where, there's, if, you direct me that if we get served, there's a section on the agenda where it's publicly stated, and then you've got it in your packets, and absent an objection from you, it goes online the next day.
Okay,
Okay.
that sounds good.
That way there,
I hope we don't get
you got a
any.
record of you seeing
No,
it.
I don't want to more.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
And,
For the minutes, so there'll be a section on the agenda if something comes, a legal document comes in, and then they'll decide at a meeting to put it up or not, is that?
they'll see it, and then unless they object,
Okay.
it goes up.
All right.
So it's going to go up unless you say, for some reason, that it doesn't. But at that point, it's a public document anyway, so somebody can just come in and ask for it. All right, and that's all I had, thank you.
6.2, Selectman King is not here, so we're gonna, well, so it is Suicide Awareness Week, is it not?
I believe it is, I don't have the information from Cindy on that. I don't know if
It's been in the news and on TV and all of that, and it's just a reminder, reach out to people who you're concerned about. And it looks like it's opioid crisis in Townsend and Recovery Month.
I don't have anything on
I
that.
don't have anything on that. And I don't know what she was going to talk about for veterans' benefits either.
That was going to tie back into the issue with the two veterans that I addressed under my report.
Okay. 6.2.2, Town Council interviews, just so that we know what we're doing, please. Carolyn, you gave it to me and I lost it. Here it is. Okay. September 18th, right?
So those are just drafts, just so you have the names.
Why do I have just one?
Because that's all that's scheduled for the 18th. The other firm backed out.
Okay, so,
How come I have the 25th then?
Yeah, I gave for the 18th and 25th. You
Oh, I thought they were,
The 25th.
I'm sorry, I thought they were the same thing.
No.
That's what I was looking for.
I just
Okay.
printed them for the
So
names.
we have, how do you pronounce that? Mirrors?
M-I-Y-A-R-S, Miaras.
Yaras. Oh, that's pretty. Yaras in Harrington, and is that the one that was just for labor?
I don't recall.
Okay, see, that's what I need to know, okay? I need to know who's coming in for what.
You have two just for labor and then Copeland and Page.
Yes, I know, but
Yeah, if you
I
can
need
just throw them in a spreadsheet.
to know.
Yeah, we have that,
Because
actually.
we have,
already did that.
we have all of the backup. We've got the original proposals.
Yes.
What we don't have is who are we going to be talking to, when, and about what?
The sheet that Mr. Cradler did when he reviewed the bids, has all that information, exactly what they applied for.
Okay,
So we'll put it on the schedule.
if you just send it out, yeah, that'd be fine.
And then on the 25th as well. Okay. Thanks. Announcements?
I
Do you
have
have
two.
some?
First one is the Townsend Military Band will play an afternoon concert from the bandstand on the Townsend Common on Sunday, September 16th, in conjunction with the Townsend Historical Society's 37th Annual Arts and Crafts Fair. The public is invited to attend the concert, which is being funded by the supporters of the Townsend Historical Society. The Townsend Military Band, under the direction of Thomas Sousa, will open its concert at 1 p.m. by playing 76 trombones by Wilson, arranged by Anderson and adapted by Bo Cook, and The Blue Tango by Anderson, The Wizard of Oz arranged by Barnes, American Patrol by Meacham, and Hollywood Milestones. Themes from Jaws, Star Trek, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Chariots of Fire, etc. will follow. Mancini's Elephant Walk, music of the Carpenters, and the Ragtime Regiment Band March, arranged by Lewis, will be included in the first portion of the program. Osterley's Nutmeggers March, Sea Songs by Vaughan Williams, and Bennett's arrangement of The Sound of Music will be played following intermission. The Townsend Military Band will perform Mirtha's arrangement of Glenn Miller in concert, Flourish of Wind Band by Vaughan Williams, and Alfred's Colonel Bogey March, before it concludes its concert at 3 p.m. by playing the Star Spangled Banner. Next one is National POW MIA Recognition Day will be observed on Friday, September 21st. Townsend VFW Post 6538 and its auxiliary will conduct a candlelight POW MIA ceremony on the Townsend Common that evening beginning at 6:30 p.m. The public is encouraged to attend. The purpose of the ceremony is to honor all prisoners of war and those missing in action, and to remind area residents that we must continue to push for a complete accounting of all those still missing in action and those held against their will. The 39 Massachusetts residents still unaccounted for in both Indochina following the Vietnam conflict will be especially remembered. The Townsend VFW Post and its auxiliary asks all area residents to join them in honoring and remembering prisoners of war and those missing in action by wearing a red ribbon to show your concern for the 1,629 American servicemen and civilians who are still missing and unaccounted for in Indochina following the Vietnam conflict, plus more than 3,150 World War I POW MIAs, the 75,538 World War II POW MIAs, and the 7,881 Korean conflict POW MIAs, and the POW MIAs from the most recent conflicts. By displaying a red ribbon, wearing a POW MIA bracelet, or flying a black POW MIA flag beneath the American flag, citizens show that they will not be satisfied until all Americans being held are released, the fullest possible accounting is made of the missing, and the remains of those who died serving this nation are returned. VFW Post 6538 and its auxiliary feel that these Americans and their families deserve nothing less. That's it.
Thank you. Board correspondence, I have none.
I have none.
And minutes, these are the minutes, right?
Yep.
Could I have a moment, please? There was something I had a question on. we hold off on these, please?
Table.
Pardon me?
You want to table? now?
Yes, please.
Just to review more.
Thank you. To the next meeting, all right? And 6.6, review and sign payroll and bills payable warrants.
I move the board review and sign payroll and bills payable warrants out of session.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That listing of pending board business I had wanted on here, but that's okay. We'll do that next time.
Okay.
Adjournment.
I move the board adjourn meeting at 8:35.
Second. All those in